Hey guys, welcome back. Everyone who does not know Jessy, meet Jessy Bilodeau. Jessy, how long have you been with CIR so far?
Oh gosh, I've been with TD for 11 years, and I think I've been with CIR for probably 9 of those years.
Yes, I think so, because I think that I started with CIR close to 8 years ago, and you were here before I was. That's amazing. Thanks.
Started in the downtown office, and then now at the Northwest office, but yeah.
That's awesome. Jessy's such an ambassador and such a wealth of knowledge. I mean, we're sitting down talking before this, and it's incredible about all the issues that we need to catch up on.
Oh my gosh.
And the government stuff is changing so quick.
We have our next 12 CIR lives booked.
Yeah, literally.
With all different topics.
With Jessy.
Yeah, and I just want to say something in advance here. The more that you can understand financing for your clients, the more transactions you're going to be able to put together, because there's many people out there that just don't necessarily know what position they're in. So for you to offer suggestions and then introduce them to a mortgage professional like Jessy or another TD representative is absolutely critical. You will pull more deals together, and just by understanding this stuff. So pay attention.
Of course. And for all of this segment isn't just for realtors, but it's also for members of the public and people who are hoping to buy a home one day. And this is really important information because there's so many people that think that they aren't able to afford home ownership or to put themselves in a position to own a home. But with a little bit of planning, and I think that's what we're going to talk about today, is that there are a ton of options and it's completely possible. It's just not that possible when you call your realtor and say, I want to buy a house in a month. So that's what we're going to try and avoid and put you guys all in a really good position to get financing.
So Jessy, what does the public need to know to get financed?
Yeah, a bit of a different angle to a traditional financing presentation where, we're going to talk about how do people prepare for financing essentially, right? So just a cute story to lead into point number 1. So I live in a really great community with a lot of families, and my family often goes over to other families and visits. And the other day I went to one of my neighbors alone, and her toddler, who is 3 years old, comes up to me and says, hey, where's your people? And it was totally adorable, and of course she was referring to the rest of my family, but I thought, great question. And so point number 1, I was just going to kind of use hashtag where's your people.
Nice.
So, stole it from a 3-year-old, but
I like that.
So I guess the number 1 thing I'd say, build your team of industry professionals. I know the saying is never say never, but I am going to say it's never too early to engage your realtor and to engage your lender into the process.
Good.
Cool.
We actually had somebody email us on our Facebook page through CIR. Said, I'm thinking of this. And I said, you know what, why don't we have a realtor reach out to you? And if you're interested in some home prices, it was in a very specific area around the university. They're like, but is it all $1 million? I have no idea. And I was like, why don't we just put you in touch with a few people and you can, and they responded saying, you know what, I don't know how much I want to spend and I don't know when I want to buy, so I don't want to talk to anybody yet. Which is just interesting from your standpoint. It's like, the very first thing you should be doing if you don't want to make any decisions right now is at least start building your team so that when the time comes to make a decision, you have some questions answered.
Absolutely. We want to take the fear out of a consultation per se.
Yes.
The sooner we can get in contact with someone, the better it is on both sides of the spectrum, right? So, and that's not just for first-time home buyers who, let's say, are renting or living with family and they eventually want to buy in 6 months, a year, or 2 years from now. Absolutely for that group of people, but it's also for seasoned homeowners. Let's say people who want to get into the rental market, or people who are buying and selling and maybe have never done that before, or people who are selling and want to get into a new build and they've never done that before. Our programs, our policies, the federal regulations are forever changing. So let us help you with that. Let us take the confusion out of that and be your guide as early as we can in the process.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. I guess one of the examples of that, like there's so many people that I meet with when we're meeting. Let's say they usually want to meet with you right before they're ready, like you said, right? Yeah. So many examples of people that I meet with that would both look at each other and say, if only I could have talked to you 6 months ago or a year ago. And some examples of that would be, okay, self-employed people, let's say, who need to get their taxes done because we need it for income. Pre-tax season is actually a really busy time for me in a funny way because I have a lot of self-employed people who call me, my regular clients, and say, hey, I want to buy 2 rental properties, or I want to do this with my current properties, and they want to know what their income needs to be to achieve the goals they want to do in that following year. So they consult with me, I run some calculations based on a 2-year average, they then take that information to their accountant, so when they process their income as far as like how much should go into their corporation versus how much is going to go into their personal income on their notice of assessments for the plans they want to achieve in that next year, we have that consultation, and the sooner we get to talk to them, the better. If we don't have that opportunity to talk to them about their income at that stage, when they go to purchase their properties or in their investments, we're kind of dealing with what's there rather than having the opportunity to have a say in what's there. Right. Another example of that would be people who need to consolidate or repair credit. So if they're coming to you right before they want to buy, and in order to qualify we need to do some debt consolidation loans, or there's some repair that needs to be done on their credit. We're going to talk a little bit more about credit bureaus in the next slide or whatever, but we just need time to get those things done. So the sooner we can identify that, the more time we have. The last thing anyone wants is the home buying experience to be stressful.
Right.
So if we do it on a timely matter where we can do these corrections where people have time, it eliminates the stress of having to do so many things and feel overwhelmed when they should just be enjoying the process of finding their home. Another example of that is down payment. We can help those people who say, you know, I want to buy a house, but I don't have my down payment. We need the time to say, okay, what can we do with your finances? One of the great things of working for TD Canada Trust is that we can address clients' finances as a whole, right? So we can look at, okay, what's your money in, what's your money out, what kind of plan can we do to consolidate your debt payments so that you're able to pay your debts, as well as start a savings plan so that in 6 months, a year, or 2 years from now, we do have a down payment. Or maybe you're eligible for an RSP loan, and maybe we need to take the time to get that put in place so that it's available for when you need it. Another example of that would be people who are buying and selling. I often talk to someone who's done a mortgage renewal several years before or even the year before, and they renewed into something that doesn't work with their current plans. You know,
5-year fix, just
eventually. They renew into the cheapest 5-year fixed because they weren't necessarily given advice. You know, they were just looking at the rate, and it may or may not fit with the plans that they want to do in the future. In a way, they're shooting themselves in the foot because now there's a potential penalty, or now we might, you know, there's ways to deal with them like porting, but now there might be restrictions around that. If they want to do like a purchase plus improvement or a construction draw, the porting might not work with those options. So just having like, I love the fact that I get to stay in touch with all my past clients, and even if it's something that I can't help them with directly, I love having those conversations. I love when they call me at renewal time and say, hey, in the next year or two, this is what we're planning to do. Based on that, what is the advice that I should be getting right now as far as what I do with my renewal, not just about what the rate's going to be.
And I think that everyone's situation is so unique. I mean, I know that even Kirsten and I, talking to Jessy before the meeting, you know, by the amount of notes we have, oh, geez, we need to get this done, we need to get this done. And I'm thinking about it where I have, you know, a rental property and things like that. I'm wondering about the next stage of it and what I'm going to do and how to plan it. And as someone who has some self-employed income, the same type of thing. And everybody, whether you're a teacher and you've been employed forever, it doesn't matter because things are changing out there. So it's so critical to have that step and encourage your clients into that. But they're always worried about being sold something.
Right.
They're always worried about it. So your approach, you know, if you guys want clients for the long term, don't, you know, call people and just say, well, how about now? You ready to buy now? How about now? It has to be that. I don't care if you ever buy. You know, I want to introduce you to a few people that are going to help you with that process, and that's going to build some solid trust.
Another example of just, I guess the last one, kind of this area that we're talking about, was it's not necessarily just for new to Canada people, but people who need to bring money in from other countries. I just dealt with a professional who worked for Shell International in Nigeria, who's now in Canada, and we need to move a large amount of funds from Nigeria into Canada. And it's possible, but he has to do it in a short amount of time now and not necessarily get the best exchange rates. So if we have a client who needs to move money, and also different countries like China, for example, they restrict how much you can bring in at a given time, and people have to get creative and use different family members to get the money brought over. It creates a lot of complications. But if if we have the opportunity to consult those clients and say, you know, in advance, this is how much money you need to bring over, they have the time to make those arrangements, and as well, it gives them the opportunity to move the money when they're going to get a better exchange, right? Not just when they have to do it because of our time restrictions.
Love it.
Yeah.
What else? So step one, build your team.
Yeah, build your team of industry professionals. In relation to that, I guess your realtor and your lender can introduce you to a whole bunch of other industry professionals when the time comes. Builders is a great example. At TD, we have established relationships with so many amazing builders. If that is something that you are looking for as a client, let us help you with that. There's lawyers, inspectors, appraiser, contractors. CIR has the Best Your Nest program, amazing program. Like, you guys will help connect clients with a whole bunch of different companies and industries. Yeah. One that I wanted to talk to you about as far as like building your team was an accountant. And
so critical.
It's something that, you know, when you think of real estate, doesn't necessarily come, you know, top of mind. You know, as the realtor, as the lender, we can engage with you early. We can give you a strategy. We can give you a plan. We can make it happen. But, you know, you also need to know and understand the tax implications of what you're going to do ahead of time, not after the fact that it's happened. So an early consultation is so important. Things that the accountant can help you with is what are the tax benefits as a first-time home buyer? What are the tax benefits if I use my RSPs as a first-time home buyer? What are the tax implications if I use my RSPs and I'm not a first-time home buyer? How do the write-offs on my rental property really work? You know, people have this impression that I'm going to get a rental, I'm going to be able to write everything off. How does it really work? What are the tax implications if I go to my lender and I purchase this property as a rental versus a second residence, for example, and the list goes on and on of the tax.
Personally versus a corporation and
absolutely.
The income. Oh man, and the tax changes are here or coming or proposed for 2018.
Let's just hope proposed.
Oh, it's
fingers
it's
crossed that they're just proposed and not changing.
I just sat down with my accountant on Friday for 2 hours, and it is just it's crazy some of the stuff that's coming. You need to be aware of it.
Yeah, and some people don't realize, like, you know, they'll come to us as far as lenders and we'll say, you know, I want to take my existing property, convert it to a rental, and I want to get a new principal. We can make that happen, absolutely, but there is tax implications of having a change of use. So having that other industry professional that they can connect with, and the sooner they have that information, the better we can all plan as a team. Like, so, you know, don't go it alone. And I think, you know, to speak to what you were saying, Kirsten, I think to take the fear out of it, or to feel that, you know, we're going to sell, you know, we're there to sell you something, you know, it's just realtors being able to offer, say, we have this, you know, group of, you know, industry professionals that we partner with, you know, have a consultation so that they can give you a strategy to get from A to B. You know, there's no sales involved because they're not necessarily looking to buy at that moment.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's preparing them for the future.
I love the word positioning. Right, like positioning you for the next year of decisions that you might want to make. Like, positioning is much different than decision making.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Cool.
Okay.
What's next?
Yeah.
What's next?
Credit report stuff. I like this. Is interesting.
Well, we were talking about this earlier.
Credit report stuff is interesting.
Yeah. So number 2, no matter how far away you are from actually purchasing, know your credit report. It's amazing to me how many people have zero idea of what's actually on their credit report. They know they might have applied for something.
I know my score.
Yeah, they know they might have applied for something and they got approved, but they have no idea what's actually on there. Or some people who might not have the best credit know, well, I know my credit isn't great because I didn't get approved, but they have no idea what's actually on there, right? There's multiple layers to what you should know on your credit report. Number 1, the score. So it sounds like you might know your score. What does that mean, right? So we're you know, your score can be anywhere from 0 to about 850, I think is the highest. We want to have a minimum of 680. When your score is below 680, it actually reduces the debt service ratios that we can go to when we're doing your qualifying. If your score is over 680, we can go to a higher GDS, TDS ratio when we're doing your qualifying on there. So it's very important to try to get your score at least 680.
For those people fresh out of real estate school, you guys will know, but those people that haven't been in real estate school in 15 years, go through the GDS and TDS again. What are those?
So the GDS, TDS are our main qualifying ratios. Your GDS is your gross debt servicing ratio. So basically that's going to take your mortgage payment, your property tax, half your condo fees that have applies, your heating costs divided by your income. If your score is over 680, we can go to 39. If it's under 680, we can only go to 35. So we lose 4% if your credit score is not where it should be, essentially. The TDS is all those same things, but it also adds your monthly debts to that. We can go to 44%. If your score is below 680, we lose 2% on that, which is 42. And that can make a big difference for someone who's kind of tight on qualifying.
So one of the benefits, and I know they're going to chat about this, with knowing what that score is if you are looking to make a purchase in the next, call it 6 to 12 months, doing whatever you can to try and not lose that 4%, to try and not lose that 2%, is really in your best interest. But if you don't know that in advance, you don't have time to deal with it in advance, then you're probably not going to be able to fix it.
We lose that opportunity, absolutely. Like, more than just the scores, the details of what's on there too. So many people have old credit on there that's inactive. And even just for, purposes of fraud or whatever, it's good to get those closed off. It'll also help increase your credit score. So many people have miscellaneous little things, like they've been very responsible with their credit, but they might have an old student loan that they don't even know who to contact, and all of a sudden it's showing up as a collection. Cell phones, we see it all the time. It's one of the worst. You've closed a cell contract, you thought you've paid it off, but there was an outstanding small amount. All of a sudden there's a collection that you didn't know about on your bureau. So many people get surprised kind of right before we want to do a purchase. So having the time to do that is so important. When we're consulting with people 6 months, a year, or 2 years out, if that's when we're doing the consultation, we're probably not going to pull their credit bureau, because doing a hard pull when a lender pulls your credit does have effect on your score. It's not a huge part of 90% is everything else, 10% is inquiry. So really for people who have scores around 700, it's a minimal effect, but still an effect. So you don't want people pulling your credit unnecessarily if you're not in the stage where it's actually going to be required. At the consultation stage, what we would recommend is that clients do a soft pull. When clients pull their own credit, it doesn't register as an inquiry, and it doesn't affect their score at all. And what we would recommend is that they get the report that not just has the score, but has the full details. And you should go to both bureau companies. You can go to equifax.ca as well as transunion.ca, get the full reports with all the details. I sit down with so many people and their credit bureau. The score is one thing, but we go through it line by line and say, these are the things that need to be removed, these are the things that need to be fixed, these are things that need to be corrected before we're ready to prepare you for financing, which is what we're talking about. Most every delinquent or negative thing on a credit bureau can be corrected, but it takes a lot of time. Anyone who's dealt with the credit bureau companies, it's kind of like dealing with the government. It takes a lot of time. First, you have to identify what all the problems were. Then you got to take the steps to correct them. And sometimes if a collection, the longer it goes, it'll go from the initial person who put the collection on you to one collection company to another. Sometimes you're going as deep as 3 or 4 collection companies to try to get this cleaned up.
And that could literally be like your TELUS box wasn't sent back and you owe them $24.
Absolutely.
And that could take months to rectify.
Right. So having the time to not only source the problems, have them corrected, then there's an additional steps of once you've actually paid, let's say, paid who you needed to pay, confirmation, we then have to send that to the bureau companies for them to process the correction on their end. And then once they've done that, it takes time for the score to repair. After the score is repaired, it takes time of good behavior and positive things that are going to lift your credit score to get the score where we need it to be. So absolutely fixable for people who have bad credit and think, I can never get a mortgage. Have the consultation. Let's look at it. Let's look at what if you don't do anything about it, things on your credit bureau stay there forever if you don't do anything about it. They don't just disappear. It does take a little bit of work, but once we're able to correct it, at least we can sit down with you and give you A, B, C steps in order to get it.
And that's something that you would do with.
Absolutely.
So if a realtor referred you to a client, you could go through that process. So much more than getting a mortgage.
Absolutely.
So much more than that.
Your Facebook post right after the meeting is going to be encouraging your followers to go to equifax.ca and TransUnion to pull their credit report.
Yeah, and then book a consultation with us. We'll go through it with you line by line, and we'll, tell you how to
Awesome.
what you need
I
to
love
do.
that. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jessy. Very cool.
So with the clients that are 6 months, a year, or 2 years out, probably when we consult with them, we're probably doing something more like a pre-qualification, where we're going to take their income numbers, we're going to look at their down payment, we're going to look at what we're going to do, and we're kind of just going to create, based on what you're telling me, does this look feasible, right? We're going to kind of do that. We're going to dig into their credit bureau. We're going to make sure that they're connected with the industry professionals, along with the lender and the realtor that they need to have those consultations. But what I'd say is at 120 days out, that's when we would want to do a formal pre-approval versus just a pre-qualification. A formal pre-approval, we are actually physically collecting your income documents. We're actually doing a hard pull on your credit. And hopefully if you've consulted it with us earlier, by the time we've done that hard pull, we know what that score is going to be, and we know that it's not going to be a concern. For the income, it's so good to be able to talk to people early. I gave that example about self-employed people who sometimes consult on even what amount they should claim as personal versus a corporation. But just in general, especially if you're self-employed, but even if you're not, have your taxes done. It's just such a huge delay, and it's just becoming, with regulations, it's just, you need to have your taxes done. It's something that just must
Shake the finger at the world.
Yeah.
Get your taxes done. So big for realtors. I know you guys are self-employed. I know some of you have corporations.
A lot of work, though.
It is a lot of work, but you gotta do it. The
taxes.
world uses the notices of assessments as, those definitive, so many times, like this is actually what you say that you make, or this is what the government believes. So yeah.
So you have to have your taxes done, even if you're not self-employed. In relation to taxes, and just speaking about changes at like federal regulations and policies like we've been talking, rentals is a good example of that. So in the past, if you had a rental property and you had a lease, we could use that amount and offset your payments. The federal regulations on that have become a little bit stricter. Now, basically, if you are not claiming that rental income on your taxes, on your T1 General, on the statement of rents, we cannot use that rent to offset your qualifying. So again, if I've had the opportunity to sit down with someone, let's say who had a couple renters, didn't necessarily know that, their accountant said maybe that they could wait or didn't necessarily put it on, we have the opportunity to say, okay, in the past you didn't do this, but if you want to continue getting finances with the way the industry has changed, on your next tax, so these taxes coming up, let's say for 2017, make sure you claim it, make sure it's on your statement of rents, make sure it's on your T1 General. So when we go to do your financing for this year, we're going to have what we need. We've talked to you in advance, so we've been able to prepare. Again, early consultation is very, very important. What else do I want to say? On pre-approvals with TD, the application is actually reviewed by our underwriting center. So it's a formal approval that's been officially reviewed. In some instances, people think they're pre-approved when they're actually only pre-qualified. Someone said, yeah, you make $60,000 and you want to qualify for this. That looks good to me. And they're under the impression that they're actually pre-approved. If you don't have it in writing, if you don't have an official approval letter from your lender, I would question whether you're formally pre-approved.
Total sense.
Yeah.
Total sense.
Part of that I want to talk about is also, at the 120-day out stage, is the rate. We've been spoiled for a little bit, where we've been in, historically low interest rates with nothing really changing for a long time. So I think it created some complacency, in the industry as well as with clients that, booking a rate isn't important. At 120-day outs, you must have a formal rate booked. We were just talking before this started. In the month of July, we saw 4 rate increases on the fixed products. So clients who did formal pre-approvals in June and locked in an 120-day rate greatly benefited from the fact that they had done that.
Being proactive,
especially with rates going up, right?
Wow. Yeah. And we did look, what, according to TD Economics, what they're predicting is that we're going to see continual, slow, gradual, but continual increases in the rates, right? TD Economics said, as far as prime rate goes, that we're probably going to see another 0.25% increase in the prime rate in the next year, and that we're going to continue to see slow, gradual increases in the fixed market. So I can't stress enough, having that people that I consult with early, and they tell me, I'm looking to buy, this many months out, I'll put it in my calendar as a calendar reminder. And when they're within the time, that I can book a rate for them, I will call them.
Perfect.
And we'll get it done. They don't even have to remind me. So we'll stay on top of that for your clients.
Jessy, we're
Great,
running out of
Jess.
time. Take us home, pun intended.
Oh man, okay. The last thing I want to talk to you about, I guess, was doing a household budget. So it's never too early to do that. So it's not just what you qualify for, it's also what you can afford. You know, there's so many housing expenses, non-housing expenses. Looking at the picture of a whole is something that I would hugely recommend. You should also not just plan when you're doing this kind of activity, what your current situation is, but what the future is going to be. Is there going to be a mat leave, a job change? Is there going to be change in liabilities? Let's look at it as a whole and make sure that we're looking well in advance.
That's a
and
great
be able to
slide.
give you a plan.
We'll send that out to you guys
Yeah,
as well.
you guys saw the slide on the screen there, and so we have a few slides that we're actually going to send out as well.
Right. Yeah, we can send the entire presentation as well as just some job aids that the realtors can use or even clients can look at just to help through the process and some of the things we talked about
That
today.
would be really great, Jessy. Well, and you know, we only had so much time.
I know. I feel like
you could have done this for 2 hours, but the notes that you have and the presentation that you have, even just as some points of dialogue and consideration when realtors are speaking to potential clients, is so great. So thank you for being willing to share your notes. That's huge. And we'll also put your contact information in there so anybody can reach out to you if they want to start booking some of these, because I think we should.
Yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree.
Just how nice to be able to make decisions with information.
And remember, even some of your clients, you know, most importantly for your clients that are in a bad place right now, that aren't sure about what to do and stuff, having the conversation with the professional is the first place to start. It really, really is. So,
and it's never too early to have that consultation.
Being proactive pays. Like I think that's the bottom line of this. So, Jessy, you're so knowledgeable. Thank you so much. We're going to have you on a lot more in the next coming months here. Great information. We're going to send all the slides to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessy.
Thank you.